everyone, Christie from Campus Rec here. As promised, for this week's A&P Crash Course, we are going over our chest muscles, also known as our pecs. So our pecs are made up of two major muscles, our Pectoris Major and our Pectoris Minor. So the Pectoris Major, as you can imagine, is the larger of the two muscles, and it originates on the clavicular, so the anterior surface of the clavicle. The clavicle is actually your collarbone right here, so the anterior surface means the front side of your clavicle, okay? And then it actually also originates on the anterior surface of the sternum and cartilage of ribs 1 through 7. So the origin is rather large, so you can imagine kind of the surface area that your pectoralis major takes up. So once again, the anterior surface of your clavicle or collarbone, and then the anterior surface of ribs 1 through 7, in addition to your sternum, which is what a lot of people call your breastbone, okay? So it originates right here, your pectoralis major, okay? And then it inserts on the greater tubercle of your humerus, which is actually this bone right here of your upper arm. So an easy way to remember that this is your humerus is what I like to tell individuals when you hit your funny bone. A lot of people will be like, I hit my funny bone. That's their humerus, right? And there's nothing humorous about it, okay? So an easy way to remember that this bone is called your humerus is because when you hit your funny bone, it's just memorable, right? So once again, your pectoralis major originates on the anterior side of your clavicle, in addition to ribs 1 through 7 and the sternum right here. So it originates here, okay? And then it inserts right on the greater tubercle of your humerus, so right up here, okay? One of the main functions of your pectoralis major is that it concentrically accelerates shoulder flexion, right? So flexing your shoulder, contracting your shoulder, decreasing that joint angle of the shoulder, in addition to horizontal adduction. So if my arms were out like so, horizontal adduction, meaning adding to that midline or center of body, is right here. So you'll look as I contract and squeeze my pectoralis major, I'm contracting and squeezing, and that brings that arm closer to the body. So you'll see a lot of exercises like pectoral flies, and that's what that's doing. That's working that pectoralis major, bringing that adduction, the horizontal adduction, towards the center midline. And then also internal rotation. So if my arm is out like so, and I internally rotate it, remember that insertion is on the greater tubercle of the humerus. So by squeezing this pectoralis major, it's actually forcing us to internally rotate as well. So again, internal rotation is the third primary function of your pectoralis major. Your pectoralis minor originates on ribs 3 through 5, so still pretty darn high up here, but it's a lot smaller than the pectoralis major, as it inserts on what is the cricoid process of the scapula. I know what you're thinking. If you know what your scapula is, it's your shoulder blade, and the shoulder blade is on the back side, the posterior side of your body. So how is the muscle on front touching bone in the back, right? So your scapula is a little bit more complicated. It actually has kind of like almost like a hook up top, and it connects to your clavicle, so your collarbone. And the pectoralis minor, like we said, it originates ribs 3 through 5, and then it actually inserts onto this process of the scapula, okay, which is obviously more internal than not. And primary function of your pectoralis minor is that it concentrically protracts the scapula. So if you remember, during the very first session of our A&P Crash Course, we talked about protraction and retraction of your shoulder blades or scapulas, and protraction means we're spreading those shoulder blades, kind of almost rounding that upper back. So our shoulder blades up back, if I were touching your back protraction would be spreading those shoulder blades, rounding it. So as you can imagine, we are contracting our pectoralis minor, which forces us to protract. Okay? So some common exercises to work your pecs are push-ups, right? Everyone's favorite, I know, don't I know it? But push-ups vary depending on your elbow angle in addition to where your hands are underneath your shoulder. So there's a difference between a wide push-up, an angled push-up, and then a close push-up, right? So they work different muscles. So wide push-ups typically work a different section of your pecs, as do the 45-degree regular push-ups, okay? Another common exercise is what we talked about, the pectoral flies. Bringing it in, it's really awesome. As you do these pectoral flies, what I like to point out is that there's a difference between keeping your elbows up and allowing them to drop as you do this range of motion. So there's a difference between this and this. Okay, by keeping those elbows high, that actually allows us to fire off those pecs a little bit more. As soon as we lower those elbows, that allows us to put a little more strain on our shoulder than we would like to, okay? Just something to think about as you do them. Other common pec exercises, as you guys can imagine, is the bench press, right? Supine lying bench press with a barbell or dumbbells or whatever you have available to you. A common wonderful stretch for your pecs is a wall stretch. So imagine I have a wall right here. You would walk, or a doorway, excuse me, we'll do a doorway stretch. So if I have a doorway around me right here, okay, imagination for these videos, let me tell you. We would walk up into the doorway with our elbows at 90 degrees and our shoulders at 90 degrees. We would walk up into that doorway, take one big step forward just with one leg, and then push our chest forward. And as you can see, this allows us to kind of stretch and lengthen the state of our pec muscles. So the last thing I would like to discuss for this A&P Crash Course this week is the importance of stretching our pecs. So throughout the day, we are typically in that kind of slouched, hunched over, sitting at a desk state, right? Whether we're commuting, working at our desk, or watching TV, we tend to have that scapular protraction that we just talked about with the rounded upper back kind of hunched over like a creature. I'm guilty of this. But that is why it is so important for us to actually stretch our pectoral muscles, ensuring that we are bringing those shoulders down and back, stretching this muscle, and we also want to strengthen our backs as well, which we're gonna get into next week. So it's not only important to strengthen our pecs, but very important to actually stretch them to have that muscular balance and help with our posture as well. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this week's A&P Crash Course, and I will see you next time.